Welcome back to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Last time we did the adult half of the Spirit Temple, beat the boss, and saved the sage, and this time we're going to be stepping into the blue light, reaching the Chamber of Sages, and grabbing the Spirit Medallion. And oh my god, I can't believe who the Sage of the Spirit Temple was. It's not like there was only one really important Gerudo that was nearby. It's Nabooru, to everyone's surprise. I mean, I guess there was her second in command who didn't get a name but had a unique model, but whatever. It's Nabooru. Everyone knows it's Nabooru. And apparently, she's a bit regretful about something that she said before. If you recall back to a few parts ago, she said something about giving us a nice reward, making it worth our while to get the silver gauntlets to give to her. I mean, we kind of couldn't keep up our part of the bargain. We couldn't get the silver gauntlets, but we ended up getting them in the end. And you know, I could give them to her right now and grab whatever the prize is that she was going to give us, but instead of keeping her promise, she's going to give us the Spirit Medallion. And this one doesn't really have anything special about its design. I mean, it's just kind of a yin-yang symbol. Nothing special about the temple or the medallion itself and how it represents the temple. And Nabooru's feeling some regret about just giving us the medallion, saying that she should have kept the promise that she made back then, whatever that promise was gonna be. And there's no post-Chamber of Sages cutscene in this one. With the Forest Temple, we talked to the Deku Tree Sprout immediately after leaving the Chamber of Sages. And with the Water Temple, we were warped to Lake Hylia and saw Sheik there and had a cutscene. And this one just kind of warps you out. So we're gonna go straight to the next temple. Well, not straight there actually. There's one thing that I'm gonna be getting while there. And that is a piece of heart, because we left a magic bean here while we were a kid. I mean, I did it very late, but we left a magic bean. And now we can get this piece of heart that's all the way up here. We can't get it otherwise. And with it, we're all ready and such to get into the Fire Temple, which I have mixed feelings about the temple. I kind of had to do a lot of weird recording stuff with it. This temple took 3 separate sessions, but I edited them together so well that it just looks like one. If I hadn't said that, nobody would have noticed probably. I'm showing how to get through this temple. First thing you want to do is go to the room on the left, because Darunia is there. How he got there? No idea, because that is too far of a distance for us to get to. And he apparently wants to have a man-to-man talk to us, but he can't, because we heard the story from Link the Goron before, that Ganondorf has resurrected an evil dragon named Volvagia, and he took all the Gorons and put them in cells in this fire temple, and we're gonna save them. Darunia is gonna try to defeat the evil dragon, but he doesn't have the dungeon item, and he's also not the protagonist of the game, which means he can't do anything. So we're gonna have to save the Gorons and deal with the dragon. But we're the hero of time, it's not that big of a deal. That's just a normal Saturday night for Link. Not the Goron, I mean the Hylian. Since we have the long shot, we can actually get across all the way over there, but there's not really a purpose. If you climb up here, there's some pots that you can get fairies from, and since the boss room is right there, it makes sense. But we can't get to the boss, and we're at full health already, so these fairies are useless. And for some reason, I could not hit that pot, even though my sword is clearly going through it, so I just broke it instead. And this distance right here is too far of a leap. We actually can't make it, but since we're wearing the Goron tunic, we're immune to the lava. Well, at least we are for a short period of time. After 3 seconds, I'd say, you'll start taking a bit of damage, but it's better than with like a regular tunic where you immediately take damage if you step on there. And something special about lava, or rather something special about the way things are programmed in this game, you notice that lava doesn't hurt us as soon as we step on it. Well, there are some other hazards that are programmed very similarly to lava, and thus they won't damage you if you step on it while wearing the Goron tunic. These things are like spikes and poisonous floors. I think there was an example of a poisonous floor in the forest temple, in the room where you have to shoot an arrow through a torch with some rotating platforms in order to melt a ice switch. If you step on those with the Goron tunic, you won't take any damage for, again, 3-ish seconds. That really makes the Goron tunic the best tunic in this game, which means that I will never go into the menu again to switch out my tunics, because the red one is the best one, just like in A Link to the Past, just like in A Link Between Worlds, just like in Link's Awakening. I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but this is, well, can be, the first temple that you go into and beat. The only thing that you need to beat it really is, well, the hook shot and obviously the Goron tunic. But you get both of those for free, and you don't need anything from other temples in order to beat it. Any adult temples anyway. You don't need the bow and arrow, even though they try to convince you that this is the second temple that you should do. I'm doing it at the latest point possible, the 4th temple. And honestly, I'm glad I'm doing it like that, because then the way the temples are kind of arranged for my Let's Play are Forest, which is a short one, then Water, which is a kind of long one, then Spirit, which I can split into 2 parts, thus making it a double short dungeon, and then this one again, which is a long one. A main thing that you're going to be doing in this temple is saving all the Gorons. Usually in each of the Goron cells there's a key with which you may progress through the dungeon. In the room that Darunia was in, there was a key there. So, well, there was a cell there too, along with a Goron. And if you talk to the Gorons, which you should, they'll actually give you hints on how to progress through the dungeon. For example, one of them will say something like, if you catch on fire, if you do a roll or swing your sword, the fire will go out. Another thing that they say is that there are certain walls in this temple that if you swing your sword at them, they'll make a different noise. And if they do make a different noise, you should use the Goron's special crop in order to break down the wall. We'll get into what that means a bit later. I on purpose get myself eaten by this like because I want to show that unlike previous games, likes don't just steal your shield. They also steal your tunics. And only the tunic that is perishable, so Zora and Goron tunics they'll steal. And only the shields that are perishable, so the Hylian shield it'll steal. But the mirror shield is a one-time only item, so you can't lose it. And it'll default you to the Kokiri tunic if you get, you know, eaten while wearing a different one. And I kind of lied in saying that you're not going to see me switch tunics anymore, because I just wanted to show off what the like was like. There are a bunch of platforms in this room that are on the lava. You can just roll along the lava in order to get across, because I have so many hearts, I might as well use them, by which I mean abuse the fact that I have a ton of health. And as you can see here, I'm showing that using your sword on certain walls will make different sounds. If it has a high-pitched, well, not high-pitched, but if it has a clanging sound, then that means that wall isn't breakable. But if it has a sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It's lower pitched, but like a higher note. I don't know. But that means you can bomb it. And thus, there's something behind it. So doing that is imperative to continuing with the dungeon. This Goron tells us that there are certain switches in the dungeon that usually you'd cut to activate. But you can use the Goron's special crop in order to activate them as well. And if you haven't guessed yet, I already used the Goron special crop in order to get into this room. It's the bombs. Bombs are the Goron special crop. Of course that makes sense. I mean, they use like bomb flowers and such. Usually you're going to be having pairs of keys in this temple. It's 2, Gorons that you save, and then you get 2 keys from that. The platforms around here all kind of fall. Either they fall or they push themselves via fire, which is pretty cool, but it hurts you if you're near the fire. So don't be behind it, I guess. This room here is very convenient to do with the long shot because you can just kind of shoot yourself toward all the graded areas you want to be at. And there's keys here, which can easily be disposed of if you get close to them. I say that you don't need arrows for this dungeon, and I am going to show off why you don't need arrows. But I am using the long shot, which is kind of cheating because you need arrows to get the long shot. And I am going to be using arrows to get a specific item, but that item can be obtained without the arrows, so I'll show both ways, kind of. After dealing with the keys so that they don't bother you anymore, what you have to do is you have to push this block on top of that, fire geyser, and, well, I accidentally pulled it there. If you push it all the way on top of the geyser, you can step atop the block, and the fire will actually push it all the way up. The geyser is actually on right now, but for some reason it doesn't push it up unless it's specifically all the way on the geyser. The room that we're able to enter thanks to the geyser is one that I stopped my recording in and then redid it. But since I'm so boss at editing, you won't even notice that it took 2 sessions to complete this temple. Or wait, 3 sessions. Only one of them was split in this room. Anyway, enough about the meta talk. That's one of the switches that the Goron was talking about that you can hit with bombs instead of just your sword. And I'm just gonna show here, Zelda blocks defy physics. Look, only the corner is touching the edge and it's still up. That's crazy. Also, I'm gonna show here that the block needs to be in that pit, otherwise you can't climb onto it from really any angle. So if you pull all the way, it'll kind of dip down a small amount, and once it does, you can climb up onto it and jump across. These grates in this dungeon, for some reason you can't hookshot onto them. I mean, I get that they're programmed differently and thus you can't do the same thing that you could do with other ones, but still, it's like, it's so convenient to be able to hookshot onto them. But I suppose it's because of this reason right here. You need to throw a bomb onto a switch, and then, it'll hit the switch and the fire will be gone from in front of the grate, and then you could climb it. If you had the hookshot, I suppose you could climb it a lot faster and avoid their puzzle that they oh so graciously made for you by basically hookshotting up to the grate after you hit the switch with a sword or something like that. And that gate went through the wall that I shouldn't have been able to see. This Goron that we're saving right here actually explains the mechanic that we've already encountered. In the Spirit Temple there was a room with a bunch of doors in it, and one of those doors had a switch behind it. They were all fake. If you tried to open one, it would fall down on top of you. You could use the Goron special crop on them, aka bombs, and it would blow them up, revealing the switch that was behind. And this room is filled with boulders that are surprisingly, I don't know, stable, I guess you could call it. They have set paths, and if they hit you, they turn immediately around. And there's nothing like stopping them in their set paths. What I mean to say is that they stop for no reason and then turn around for no reason. Like, boulders shouldn't do that, but suspension of disbelief. It's a puzzle or something. Challenge would be a better word. Usually when it comes to saving the Gorons, there's 2. Like, in whatever room you're in, there's 2 doors that will lead to Gorons, and then another door that will either lead to where you came from or where you're going to go to next. and that usually means that you're going to be wanting to have 2 keys before you try to enter any locked doors. There are some cases where it's only 1 key. Like, at the beginning of the dungeon, in the room that Darunia was in, there was only 1 key. And in a room a bit later, like a very small bit later, there's going to be only 1 key. But this room right here is the only room that quote-unquote requires the arrows. If you use the arrow here, you'll open a door that will lead to a chest containing the dungeon map. If you don't have the arrows, you can instead go through the other door, and it will lead to the room that's past this gate around the treasure chest here. And then once you get to the end of the room, you can climb up that ledge over there and basically stand on top of the gate and then jump down and grab the treasure chest. Also in this room, do not jump for those hearts, because if you fall down, you will end up in a room way earlier in the dungeon. I believe it's the room where you had to push a block onto like a fire geyser, and then, you know, the geyser would shoot the block up and carry you. That is one of the problems with this dungeon. It's not a bad thing, at least I don't think it is. I think it's actually a fitting punishment when it comes to like the verticality of this dungeon. If you fall down, you'll often have to try to make your way back up by going through rooms that you were in before. But there is a shortcut that you can create. It's in the room that we're about to enter. This is the room with all the rolling blocks, but we're not going to be paying attention to those for a little bit. We're going to be doing something very optional. If you play the Scarecrow song here, it will do what the Scarecrow song does and summon Pierre. If you turn around, there will be a platform that you can hookshot onto. If you have the long shot, you can actually hookshot onto it from a fairly good distance without using the Scarecrow song. That's actually how I've done it before. This is the first time I ever used the Scarecrow song, because I would see Navi go up to the platform, showing that Pierre would show up there, but I play the Scarecrow song from a different area. Like, I jump across a few blocks, then notice that Navi was gone, and then play the Scarecrow song, and he wouldn't appear. So that's the first time I tried doing it from the platform that you enter the room from. All that's really here are gold Skulltulas and a treasure chest containing something pretty useless to me. But I guess you might have a use for it if you want it. And you could always come back to the dungeon, but I never really do that in these games. Step on the switch here, and the fire surrounding the chest will disappear. It also shows you kind of the path to it. What you want to do is you want to hookshot onto this hookshot target here, and the ground is kind of slippery. You'll slide down it. You want to get to the chest before the timer runs out, and inside the chest is 200 rupees. Not that great of a reward considering that I have 500 rupees in my wallet. It does, however, act as foreshadowing to a different room that we're going to be entering. This dungeon is very symmetrical when it comes to the upper floors. It has a similar layout on both sides. And this right here is such a tough thing for me, like making that jump. It's so difficult in my eyes. Like trying to get down from the platform as it's rising. If you bomb this hole right here, then you'll reveal a grate. And, of course, a hole. This is actually a room that we were in before, the one that I showed off the weird physics of, where if you push a block all the way to the ledge and just the corners touching the ledge, it'll stay up. This is that room. And there's a Goron here, so obviously we have to save them. He tells us about a special creature in this dungeon that dances with fire, and arrows won't work on it, which implies that you should have arrows in this dungeon, but you don't need them. Things that can work on it, however, he says the Goron special crop will be useful, but I actually don't use it. I use the long shot in order to take care of it. I think that it's just easier, and also I don't like waiting for the timer for the bomb. Unless, like, once the bomb hits the body, then it explodes or something like that. But considering the not really physical form that the enemy takes, I wouldn't believe it. And this right here is such a dumb move. And it goes into what I was talking about before, where you have to backtrack if you fall down. These enemies right here, these slugs, they always drop magic. And you can't kill them in one hit. You always take two. You need to extinguish their fire with the first, and then actually kill them with the second. There's a switch over here that I decided to ignore, and as soon as I noticed that the gate was still closed, hopefully I notice it soon, because that's really nagging at me now. Jeez. That switch goes to the gate at the top here, and this is also another example of needing two keys. They aren't quite in the same room, but the entrances to where you get those keys are in the same room. There's this gate right here, and then the one where we had to blow up the floor and create a shortcut. So it kind of still goes into the whole two keys at a time thing. Getting a good look at the shield now reminded me of something that I probably should have talked about as soon as I entered the dungeon. And it has to do with, like, censorship and controversy and such. The dungeon music in this dungeon had, like, some sort of religious chanting in the background, and I guess they censored it in every version after the 1.1 version. I don't actually remember what the song sounded like originally. This is all I remember, honestly. So I can't tell if it was a better song or not. Nor do I remember if anyone was really angry about the inclusion of the chanting in the song. But Nintendo tries to delete all religious stuff from their games, so whatever. And here I'm showing off you can get to the treasure chest without needing the arrows. I didn't mention that the fire in this room will chase you as soon as you step onto the graded platforms, but it's really not that big of a deal. It's way too slow to be that much of a problem. And even if it does hit you, it'll knock you forward a bit, but then you'll kind of get up and the fire will actually be pushed back a bit too. And we have a Mega Man room again. This one doesn't actually lead to the boss. It's kind of, I guess, a checkpoint between the two halves of the dungeon. If you lock on here and talk to Navi, she'll say that down there is the room where we saw Darunia, so we know that we're kind of gonna be getting to there from here. This room also has a lot of maze-like properties to it, where a bunch of firewalls will appear as you're walking toward the pairs of pillars that create the walls. In here is the compass, very easily missable in my opinion. I actually went through a lot of the game without even knowing where the compass was in this dungeon. Not like I ever needed it. I mean, I beat the game a ton of times without needing it. If you go any more to the right, there will be a lot of firewalls that will prevent you from getting to the sort of the top third of this room, I guess you could call it. So what we have to do is navigate this fire maze right here and get to that locked door. Once we get to it, we'll basically be able to enter and then walk through the center of the room to get to the opposite side of it and then continue on with the dungeon. There is a Goron in a cage here that we can't really help out right now. You can kind of figure out how to get to him, but we don't have the item required to open his cage at this point. We are going to be getting it soon. And now that we're on the opposite side of the room, more fire maze to deal with. This switch over here, if you press it, then you'll basically release the firewall that's preventing you from stepping over there. It is a timed switch, however, so you're gonna have to make your way very quickly. You want to immediately go to the right, and it's pretty easy to get to it, in my opinion. And if you don't, you could just try again. This door is fake. You're gonna need to bomb it, and it will reveal another door behind it. You can't really tell, but it also makes the hallway for the door go a bit further. In the room that we just revealed, we're going to encounter the first of many reoccurrences of this mini-boss. The Flare Dancer, I believe it's called, If you shoot your hook shot at the core, it will fall down. But if you take too long, these little fire things will start running around and trying to chase after you. It's not that difficult of an enemy. What you want to do is use the hookshot to get him out. Then attack him with the sword. He'll try to run around the central block. And you want to cut him off by going in the opposite direction of him. So as you see, he's running counterclockwise against it. So I run clockwise and attack him. Using the Bigoron sword is a pretty good idea because of its long range. You can actually hit him multiple times before he even gets to do, you know, a full rotation around the central block. I suppose bombs would, you know, blow him up on impact, and he is a bomb himself, so watch out for that. Because he is made of fire, if he gets hit by the Goron special crop, he would probably fall out of his fire armor thing. Taking this leads to a room that's pretty similar to one that we were in before. It's green and it has a bunch of grates that we have to climb, but no Skulltula this time. Instead we have a switch. You want to plant a bomb, then get as close to the firewall as you can, and then once the bomb explodes, the fire will die down and you could climb up. I also didn't mention this before, but in certain rooms, the counter for like when you're in a hot room doesn't show up. Usually in these green rooms, like the room where I got eaten by a like, my tunic came off, but the timer didn't appear. That just kind of shows that certain rooms don't have the timer on. I think all rooms should, because, you know, you need the tunic to get into the temple in the first place, so you might as well keep the tunic on the person for as long as possible. But then again, there are ways to lose your tunic, and then you'd kind of be stuck with no way to progress through the temple, so you could use those rooms as breathers, I guess, if you do end up losing the tunic. Honestly, you should just buy another one. It's 200 rupees, which isn't that big of a deal. There's a lot of rupee chests around the world. But anyway, we got the dungeon item, the Megaton Hammer. What you need to do is step on the switch and then make your way to the center of the room, just like before with the 200 rupee chest. But in this case, it's actually a lot easier because there are two ways to get to it. You can either go the long way, which is go on the outer circle, or go the short way, which is going along the inner circle, which is very thin, but it ends up being faster in the long run. The Megaton Hammer is a two-handed weapon, just like with the Bigoron sword, but it's a much heavier weapon in terms of how quickly you can swing it. It leaves shockwaves after you hit the ground with it, showing that it is a pretty heavy weapon. And there are certain blocks in this dungeon that can only be moved if you hit them with the Megaton Hammer. And same with that block at the top of the staircase. We had to hit it with the hammer, and it would kind of move the rest of the staircase down so that we can actually climb. There's a blue switch there they need to place a block on top of in order to keep going. And if we hit the Megaton Hammer to this block here, we'll end up in the room that we were in before. The switch here is rusted. We've actually seen one of these in the Spirit Temple, and if you hit it with the Megaton Hammer, that's the only way you can actually open up the door. There's a time block over there, so obviously you have to play the Song of Time in order to move it. Underneath it is another one of those rusted switches, so unless you get the Megaton Hammer, you're not going to be able to save this Goron. In terms of what the Megaton Hammer was used for in the Spirit Temple, it was essentially to create a shortcut, but since I did it all in one go, you don't really need that. And if you really do need to leave the temple, you can just set up a Furore's Wind in whatever room you're in, then play the song associated with that temple to get back to the entrance. Since I don't, you know, exit dungeons once I've entered them, that's not really something that I use, but if you have to, you have to. And I don't, so I won't. Of course, we get a key from inside this cell. The Goron said that there was special blocks that can't be moved unless you have the Megaton Hammer. And we're gonna be encountering those once again. We already saw them. They were blocking a door. Hitting this central pillar here will cause it to drop a very long distance. a distance that Link takes no damage from. He's perfectly fine. But we're back in the room right before the boss. And basically back at the entrance of the dungeon. On the other side of this room, there's a door. A door that's blocked by a bunch of these blocks. So of course, we need to hit him with the Megaton Hammer to move them. You need that key from the cell that we were just at in order to enter this room in the first place, so make sure you actually get it. The Megaton's Hammer shockwave, well, the Megaton Hammer is not the Megaton's Hammer. The shockwave that it causes can flip over these slug enemies. If you hit them a couple times with the sword, then they'll actually die, but they won't be able to harm you while they're flipped over. And you need to kill all the enemies in this room in order to progress. The fire keys obviously being the most annoying because you can't flip them over and have them stay on the ground. Although you can use arrows, but I'm adamant about not, except for that one point where I did. These blocks I didn't talk about, the ones that kind of fly up and attack you, they were in A Link to the Past as well, and the way I like to avoid them was kind of standing still and slashing my sword so that they would all clang against it. At least I think they were in A Link to the Past. Maybe they were in A Link Between Worlds, but whatever, doesn't really matter. They're basically the same game, right? They're actually not. We find another flare dancer thing here, and now we have the Megaton Hammer. So if we hit it to the ground, the dude just kind of falls, and we can hit him with the hammer if we so desire. But I think the Bigoron sword still is the most useful tool for killing these guys because of the wide arc that it swings in, even though I'm stabbing with it and horribly missing. The flare dancer lets out a pretty evil sounding laugh when it goes into its fire armor thing, but it ends up making these really kind of adorable noises once you try to run around and catch it. I also don't know what it's supposed to look like. It's a pretty weird creature. Like, obviously, while it's in this form, it kind of looks like a person. It has a humanoid figure, but this little thing, it doesn't have arms. It only has legs, and it blows up. There are other enemies that actually blow up in this game, such as the Dongos and, well, not in this game, but real bomb chews, but I honestly can't put my finger on what that's supposed to be. This chest is pretty useless. It contains bombs, which you don't really need at this point because we're nearing the end of the dungeon. All we have to do is open this door and find another Goron here. You need the Megaton Hammer in order to press the switch, and it will open up the two gates that are surrounding him. You can actually get into this room on the opposite side of the dungeon entrance room, but there's not really a use to it. All you'll see is the gate with the Goron cowering inside. And with that, actually, we've saved all of the Gorons, and we got the last key, the boss key. Well, I say all of the Gorons, we still need to help out Darunia, but we're gonna do that right now because we have the boss key. We can enter the boss door and pretty much finish this very long temple. Long but fun. And the boss of this temple is actually pretty difficult if you don't know, like, how to beat it quickly. And I'm not gonna beat it quickly, I'm just gonna say that right now. Using arrows for this boss is actually very helpful. The Megaton Hammer is required to beat it, obviously. It's the dungeon item. Of course you're going to use it to beat it. But the boss here is, obviously, as other Gorons have described it, a dragon that has been revived by Ganondorf. And it's a fire dragon. Obviously there are other kinds of dragons, but not really in the Zelda universe. Anyway, it's a fire dragon. It's named Volvagia, and it's actually a female for some reason. If it hits you with that fire, I mean, it's not gonna because it's a cutscene, but it's pretty dangerous stuff. Like, I've done minimalist runs of this game, and I've tried to beat this boss, and it's actually the first boss I game over to, because if you get hit with that fire, it takes away a good chunk of your health. And I am fighting it incorrectly here, at least in my eyes I am, because What you want to do is you want to hit it with the Megaton Hammer as it pops its head out of the ground, and then use a jump attack with the Bigoron Sword to kill it. Don't do spin attacks like I was doing. While it's flying through the air, using arrows on it will actually get it to come to the ground a lot faster. But while it's flying, it can also spit fire out at you, and that fire will drain your health like nothing else. If you notice, the music is also the same as the song that was playing during the, the King Dodongo fight, yes. When Volvagia flies so high into the air that you can't lock onto it, you want to start running around, because it will drop a bunch of boulders from the sky. Somehow, it's not even touching the ceiling, I don't think. It's just kind of flying there. But the boulders kind of follow Volvagia, so as it's going into a hole, you want to get away from that hole because the boulders are all going to fall near it. I am being pretty reckless when it comes to this fight. Honestly, you could make it over in like 2 hits to his head, or her head. But, well, I was gonna make an excuse saying that I'm trying to show off everything the boss can do, but that's definitely not true, because if you remember the Goma fight, I kind of killed it without even letting it attack me. This was also like, well, I'm not trying to make any excuses, but I was interrupted a lot during the session that I recorded this this boss fight, and in fact this entire temple. And honestly, I was just kind of trying to get it over with because, well, I had IRL stuff to do that kind of hindered me from continuing to record this. But thanks to my super awesome editing skills, you probably can't really tell where I split up the sessions. There were actually 3 different sections of this recording that were recorded on like different days, pretty much. Once you kill a head, you can actually lock onto it and see what Navi has to say about it, which isn't that important actually. She just says that she doesn't know its weak point. But the head melts into a heart container. Next time we'll step into the blue light and figure out who the next stage is, as if it wasn't obvious already.